Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Break Free from Your Monkey Mind, Season 4, Episode 10. I'm Tony, and with me tonight is my co-host Leanne. Hi, Leanne.
Hello, Tony. Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good, I'm good. Thanks, had a brilliant week, so yeah. And we've got a guest tonight, Mel Young. So, Mel, how are you this evening?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for
And
inviting me
thank you
on.
very much for coming on. Appreciate it. So, first question we ask everybody who comes on, tell us who they are. So, who is Mel?
So it's quite difficult not to jump straight into what your profession is because um you tend to marry that up, don't you? But yeah, who is Mel? So I'm a very outgoing person, and I have always been a very active person to a certain point. When I was younger, I was involved in every single sport and fitness event that you could possibly think of when I was at school and stuff like that. So I was always very, very active. I've always been quite creative and kind of artistic. Um, love to travel, absolutely love travel. If I could travel the world, I would do it tomorrow. And that is my plan, to see as much of the world as possible. Um, and yeah, I love helping people, hence why I've ended up having this career. And yeah, I'm trying to think of other things. Um, yeah, I'm a very driven person, so once I set my mind to something, I won't stop until I get it. So I would say that's a big trait of mine as well. But yeah, I think that's about it.
So, what other
So,
hobbies do you have? What are things you do when you're not working?
Um, when I'm not working, well, travel is my one main thing that I would say like brings me complete happiness. I love to see as much of the world as I possibly can. Um, hill walking, stuff like that. I think you hit a certain age and that becomes your hobby, doesn't it? So I love to kind of travel out. I'm going to Glencoe in a couple of weeks and we're going to do some hills and stuff there. So yeah, I like to do that. And um, reading, I would say, is something that I've started to do quite a lot of, and yeah, kind of I've just started to try and get into the meditation and stuff like that because I find that is a massive help, and it's something that's quite new, but I'm starting to really get into that, and enjoy that as well. So yeah, I'm going to just put my charger on here.
So you love traveling. What's one place you've been to then that you say is really your favourite?
Croatia, that's up there with one of my favorite places. Um, we were quite lucky and we got to go kind of when lockdown lifted before it came on us again. In between that time, we managed to get away to Croatia and we travelled about. So we went to all different parts. We took rucksacks instead of suitcases and we had stayed in a hostel one night and then we moved around the country and we've seen different parts and it was amazing. It was the best experience. I would go back there in a heartbeat. It was beautiful. The food's lovely, people are nice. So yeah, that's probably up there with one of my favourites. So yeah, next on the list I would say is um Portugal, going to go to Lisbon and Italy as well. That's my next two places.
You love Lisbon. Lisbon's brilliant. I've
Yeah,
been a few
I'm looking
times. I
forward.
really enjoy Lisbon. If you love food, it's definitely brilliant. If you love
Yeah,
seeing sights and places, you'll love Lisbon. Especially
yeah,
Berlin Tower, that just outside the outskirts of Lisbon. That's a great place to go. I've been
yeah.
to that.
It looks beautiful. I've been looking up stuff and researching it and stuff, and it does. I'm really looking forward to it. It looks outstanding.
If you ever like things like that, one of it's great to do is a cruise in the mid because it gives you a chance to see places and you only get like a day. But what we realise going to them is places we'll go back to later. So when we go there, see what they're like, but actually they do like this. We'll go back here, like Barcelona's one like that, because there's just so
Yeah.
much to do. Lisbon's been a couple of times because there's just so much to do in Lisbon. So you
Hmm.
find you go, you'll see cities and you go, that's great. Or ones you might go, actually, there's not as much as I thought here. So it wouldn't be worth coming for a week or that. But then you can
Yeah.
do that.
Like
Great.
try before you
So,
buy.
yeah, and it's a brilliant way of doing it. We enjoy it as well.
Hmm. Yeah.
So you've said reading as well, Jenny. What kind of books do you read?
So at the moment, because I'm in my first few years of my business, so a lot of them are kind of like self-help and business related stuff to kind of help research for that. Jen Sincero, a couple of her books, I find have been really, really good. And there's another one, it's a kind of, it gives you sales advice because it's something that when you do your qualifications and stuff, the sales part of it, you don't ever get taught that side of things. You kind of need to learn that on your own. It's a persuasion hitman. It's like the tactics of a persuasion hitman or something like that it's called. But that's a great book when it comes to sales and stuff. So yeah, a lot of them have been business related, self-help, that kind of thing. And I'm enjoying. I like to learn. I like to kind of get as much information out of them as possible. I've found that that's my preferred way of reading rather than kind of fiction or fantasy or anything like that. I like to be learning as much as I can.
It's they're good books. Anything like that that can help you to keep developing as well.
Mhm.
As a great thing to do, and it can only help your clients, which will come
Yeah.
shortly, but it helps them because you're learning more about you.
100%, yeah.
So, Mel, you're going to tell us what you do for a living? I'm sure
Yes.
everyone's eager to know now.
So I am a personal trainer. I don't think we do ourselves justice saying personal trainer because we're so much more than just a personal trainer or what people perceive that to be. So I would say I'm a coach because we coach so many different aspects of life that comes with that. Yeah, so I own my own facility. I've got a small gym studio where my clients come and train at the moment. I'm fairly new to the game, to be honest. This is something that's came along. It was lockdown that made me make the decision to take the plunge and leave my career of nearly 14 years. So previously I worked within pharmacy and acute pharmacy. And I spent nearly 14 years working within that sector. And that is basically what kind of led me to be a personal trainer and the reasons behind it, because as like we chatted about earlier about medication and how people are always kind of turned to medication. As I kind of grew older through my career in pharmacy, I began to kind of realise that there is other options. It's not just turning to medication is not the only way. And fitness and nutrition and stuff like that can massively change your life without you having to take medication. So my kind of motto that I like to say is I like to try and help people fix the problem rather than medicate the symptoms. And I feel
Did you find a pattern when you was in pharmaceuticals with the sort of things you kept getting in regularly? And did you look at them and think, you could actually do this instead of being on this?
100%, yeah. And it's hard to see when I've always been in fitness, as I said earlier. I was an active kid, but don't get me wrong, I hit a stage in my life where I wasn't so active and I ended up putting weight on and I became quite unhealthy. So going through that my own experience of that and then getting fit and healthy again. So I had that aspect of it, and then working in the hospitals and just seeing like how so many people are just directed to medication before kind of exercise and nutrition's even mentioned. And there's so many people you're looking at thinking, my God, you could help yourself so much more by doing these other things or having a different approach to it. But people, it's not their fault because it's a wee bit like they're not kind of educated on it. Nobody helps them. Nobody teaches them how to do these things. So when someone says, say, yeah, you should exercise more and you should eat a bit better, it kind of means nothing if you don't really know how to do that. And I do feel like doctors these days will always say that to people. They'll always try and get them to eat healthier or exercise more, but that's as far as the advice goes. Or they'll say, look up this website and it'll tell you. And it doesn't really give you that much information. So then the problem doesn't go away. So then the medication's given to mask the symptoms to try and it kind of hides it a wee bit. And that was where I kind of thought, I don't want to kind of be involved in this just dishing out. Obviously, there's medication out there that's needed and that helps people massively, but there's a lot of it that could be avoided. And that's my main driver.
many years ago, PT trainers used to be purely about your fitness and what you're eating, and that was it. You say you're a coach, so obviously you're working with people's mental health in their journey all the way through. How do you find that's different now to what it was before, when, say, you maybe have gone to a gym and got your own personal trainer? How do you find that what you do is different, and how does it help people more?
I think as a personal trainer, like, we all have the base foundations that help people. So you have your foundations, like we have to move more out with the gym, we have to lift weights when we're in the gym, and we need to eat healthy foods in order for it all to work. So that's the foundations of it all. But in order to get people to actually change their mindset, fully make changes in habits and default behaviors, we need to delve a bit deeper. So I'll start to look at past the surface level stuff, which is that foundation stuff, and we start to look at behaviors and habits and where we can change that. Building trust within yourself, trusting that you're making the right choices, realizing that you have a choice and that you don't need to just do what you've always done. So there's all these kind of aspects of it that people don't even realize until you highlight it to them. Then they just go about their daily business and focus solely on the foundational things rather than kind of looking a bit further in and a bit deeper. So it's all that kind of stuff that we help people with, and it's a huge subject. And obviously that's where I'll get people like Tony to come in and do calls for my clients to help them in specific aspects where he's got more, he's educated more on specific areas. I've got a kind of mental health coach, life coach, who does things for, she holds Zoom calls for my clients. Things like how to stop emotional eating, or tactics that you can use to help with that. How to deal with stress, anxiety, overthinking. This is all part of the process. Becoming healthier, fitter, and eating better, you need to look at all the other aspects of your life, like how much stress you're under and how much anxiety you're feeling and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all that. When I was in my early 20s, I joined a gym, wanted to get fit, hated PE at school, absolutely hated it. But I was a dancer from the age of 3. So I was a Latin and ballroom dancer. So that was where I got my exercise. But put me in a PE class, no thank you. That wasn't for me. But I decided to join a gym because I was very much into boxing. So I loved all that. Joined a gym, and I was told by a personal trainer that I had a very high BMI. I was 10 stone. I'm 5'6". So okay, to them I was overweight. I didn't look overweight. I was only a size 12. They told me I had a massive BMI, and I was obesely overweight. Now, I could have gone one or two ways. I could have gone, oh my God, my world could have fallen apart, thinking because of the state of me, or do what I did and just thought, okay, well, I'll exercise. But the problem with me is, a bit like you, I'm driven, and I kind of took it too far. And I went in a year from 10 stone 4 down to 7 stone 2. With no help along the way with what I was doing. I just thought, oh, this weight's dropping off. Let's keep going. And it just got down to a point where I ended up having to see a dietitian to try and put weight back on. I would then put myself through putting things like coins in my pockets so that I could get on the scales and go, look, I've gained weight, things like that. Because I was told on my first experience of a gym, you're overweight. And I thought, I don't ever want to be put in that position again. Now, if I was given somebody like yourself that would have said to me, look, let's have a look at why you're at this BMI. BMI doesn't actually matter. It's about your health, your fitness, and everything else. You know, I could have been at a healthy, happy weight instead of getting to a dangerously thin weight where my bones were all exposed and I was on the verge of collapsing.
You created an unhealthy behaviour with something that's supposed to be really, really good. You've then got that association with that's ended up being quite a bad thing, which
that's right.
is terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was also told by the one gym trainer, don't eat carbs, don't eat this, don't eat that. You know, you've got to do this, you've got to exercise so much a day and everything else. And I got so obsessed with it that I finally found a trainer who turned around and said, how many potatoes do you eat a day? And I went, oh no, I don't touch potatoes, I don't touch pasta. And they went, that's where you're going wrong. You need to start eating a balanced diet. And that wasn't explained to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it all started to click into place. I mean, I was in my early 20s. So at that point, I just kind of thought being skinny was the way to be, instead of now being, I mean, I've put a lot of weight on because I've had a little boy. So, you know, I gained it. I blame lockdown, but I gained it in that. But the side, the mental side of it is something that was lacking, say, 17 years ago. So that is something that I found very difficult. So if you had a client that came to you in the same situation as me and started to spiral down, would you notice the signs and be able to pull them back?
Yeah, 100%. It probably wouldn't ever get to that point, obviously, because as soon as someone comes in, we have systems in place that we know exactly where they are and what plan of action we're taking to go forward. But yeah, I have people who have joined who have had similar experiences, because, you know, when you do your PT course, you're not taught anything about the mental health side of things. You're not given any of this information. It's down to you as a person to go and seek that information and learn about it, and then take it upon yourself to then install that into your business. So not all PTs will do that stuff. It is a choice that you need to make. But yeah, if someone started to go down that route, it's about, as me as a coach, I need to be ready and fully prepared to have uncomfortable conversations with people that sometimes don't want to hear. And I think that's to be a good coach, you need to be good at doing that and feel quite comfortable having that uncomfortable conversation. Because I can remember when I first started, you always had that fear. You didn't want to upset anyone, or you didn't want to say something that was, or you just felt so uncomfortable saying it. You maybe was like, oh, I don't want to say that. But over time, it's more detrimental to the client if you don't say it. So it would definitely be nipped in the bud, and just being open and honest and transparent with the person and saying, like, this is the route that you're going, and this is where it's going to end up, and let's try something else. And there's no one size fits all. We need to be able to change and adapt to suit your client, depending on what they're going through and what's happening in their life, and how their mindset, like where their mindset is at that moment in time. So with regards to like their nutrition, their exercise, it needs to be flexible and adaptable to suit them and to work for them. So yeah, it would just be a case of finding what would work to change that situation. But yeah.
So the whole BMI thing.
Oh.
What's your, yeah, that says it all. Because you go on some
17 years and she's still going on about it. Yeah, I know.
I am still going on about it. You get some websites, especially NHS over here. NHS, you know, it's very much.
Oh, they stick by it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like BMI. You know, is your BMI high? You know, you've got to drop this amount of weight and all that. You could look absolutely perfect with the healthiest attitude, the healthiest meal plan, everything else, but because this number's high, you're clinically obese and you're on that scale. Now, other sites tell you BMI is complete rubbish, and ignore it. It's nothing. You know, they can't. How can you judge, you know, your body mass and all that just by a calculation? So yeah, what's your take on it?
So I personally don't use BMI whatsoever. It's never mentioned to any of my clients. Personally, I think it's an old-fashioned thing. It's a metric that the NHS, so they need to have some sort of metric that they follow, and they have continued to follow this metric that's been there for so long that needs to be updated and changed, and there needs to be a new metric that they can use somehow. But it's so, I don't know, it's such a thing that's been set in stone for such a long time. I don't know how easy it would be, because they would have to change so many of their procedures, so many of their rules and their SOPs and stuff.
But that is still something. That is still something that people go by, and you know that's affecting their mental health.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And like, so like I've seen women myself who have been told this, and that they're not overweight. It's because of their height doesn't match up to and they're devastated. It can totally mess with people's heads. And obviously when it comes to women having children, they use that as the decider for if they can get IVF and all that kind of thing as well. And it's just, yeah, I don't know how they can justify it, to be honest, when the NHS is there to help you.
I agree it's totally outdated, but one of the reasons they still do it the same, because when you look at the figures of the whole nation and you use the BMI, the majority of ones who do fit as in the obese or overweight, it does actually fit with them. What it doesn't take into consideration, some that you're talking about, is I used to do a lot of sport like kickboxing, rugby, and we had a lot of guys who were us who were in the gym all the time. I wasn't, but they were always in it all the time. And I worked a lot of doors as well. All these guys were big bodybuilders who didn't have an ounce of fat in their whole body. But if they used the BMI scale, every one of them was obese. One of them used to love getting told that he was obese because he just saw it in that. And he went, but I haven't got a problem. And then he walks in and the doctor sees him and go, why are you here for this? But because that's what it says on his card, like he was obese. But he didn't have an ounce of fat in his whole body. That was the whole point of what he does. And so I think it's because it's hit so many people right, it's difficult to find something else that's going to give that same figure. That's the thing. What they need to do is speak to people yourself. Speak to people in the industry who deal with people who, like for fitness instructors as well, but more ones who are coaches and that, who can see how detrimental it can also be. When you look at Leanne, 17 years and she's still scarred. Isn't it?
I know that.
Because the way you talk about it is still scarred a bit of you. 17 years because the way they told you that and the way you looked at yourself, look at the impact it had on you. And that's something that we know from looking at that the things can go wrong. But what we need to do is it's always great people saying this doesn't work. I said this when my issue was going to GP and get told you need to get this medication for the rest of your life. Now I don't want that, but that's what you need. Only because they didn't know what else to do. I had to go and find a way. But then I had to go back to them and say, wait a minute, I don't want any more to take. I'm sick of taking morphine. I want something different. How can I do it? And you can only do it if you give them the option. So turn around and say the BMI doesn't work. What does then? So give them the option of what does work and what can they put in place that would still have the impact to gather as many people into that need the help. And I think that's where a lot of the NHS or doctors and things that don't take in, well, they're still called woo-woo or all these things that physical training, mental health stuff that we do is not Western medicalisation, so it can't be right. It's only because they don't understand, and Mel used the word there, they're not educated enough to understand how it is, but neither is the public. They'll go by what the NHS says because for the last 50 years, that's all they've ever known, is that the NHS is our health. That word is the NHS, National Health Service. But yet you look at other people who do know, who work out with that, who can help so many people. That's where we need to get together. And there is a thing called the Complementary Medical Association, run by Janie Goddard, who's trying to do that. She's trying to bring all this research evidence to show that the two can go hand in hand. And I think what Mel's saying there is already showing us that in the right direction. Because I've seen some other been in courses with PTs who are now doing university programming, coaching courses, hypnotherapy, even one of them, to use to help with their clients. So there is steps going forward. And you must have seen a big change in that from being in the NHS then and the limitations that you have. But that's a big responsibility on you then to suddenly do it to help your clients because they've only ever known that one way.
Yeah, like what you're saying there about like going back to the weight thing, there's so many contributing factors that will affect what weight you would be in the scale when you stand in the scales. Like you've said, these big guys, obviously it's muscle that's causing the weight. They're not getting any fat in their body, but it can also be things like inflammation, and so many, like millions of people have got inflammation in their body in one way or another. Like if you go and lift and do a massive weight session, the next day you will weigh more purely just because your muscles will be inflamed. So even that alone will cause you to weigh more. There's so many contributing factors. So it's very difficult for something as large as the NHS with as many people that goes to it. How do you possibly condense that into a new way of doing it? And that's why they've probably just stuck with the BMI, because they probably look at it like it's impossible to change it in a way where you're taking into consideration all the contributing factors to it.
But that's because there is no alternative at this moment in time. We need to find a way that we can do that, and again have some sort of scale or something that they can be measured against. Because remember, that's what they look at. How did they know that the treatment course they're giving is working?
Because I know. It's literally
measure. The more you get down, they know the better it's supposed to be working. It's not necessarily, but to them it does.
Yeah, they're basically given a drug formulary and it goes with like the cheapest to the most expensive, and they start with the cheapest, and that's how they make the decision of where to start. Whereas personally, I think they should prescribe people a coach to coach them to get them fitter and healthier. So a wee prescription pad for a PT.
I've tried it enough to get into it. I will disagree with that. But I think something that we did recently is what I would love to see more people doing, is we linked up together to help business owners who are struggling with their business because physically and mentally they're just drained. They're usually a year to 2 years into business and they're luckily hitting a point, like a brick wall. But the mental state gets bad, which means physically they don't look after themselves. So we did a thing that recently with them and it great feedback with them. And I'd love to see more of that. I've been saying this for the last 14, 15 months since I've been doing this, that people need to look at them hand in hand. Physical and mental side, and you look at the NHS as two separate things. Yeah, I get mental health treatment, I get physical health treatment. They don't cross over. They don't deal with that. Psychiatrists don't speak to the GP what you need for them. They don't speak to the consultant who's going to be in the hospital with you that if you're in an operation for some physical, then you need to go and see another referral, to go and see another specialist. That actually both things together is what you need help with. And that's what we need to get. How do we get more of that? What you do, Melvin, to educate more people that this is what we need to do. Is it not only does it need to be a bit of measure on the NHS, we need to be looking at the physical and mental side of people together.
100% agree. It goes hand in hand. Anyone can move more and eat better for a certain period of time, but if you've not been educated fully and you don't fully understand why you're doing it, the benefits of it, the difference it can make to your life, then it won't ever be something that is sustainable or that you do for forever. It really needs to be set in deep, and you need to have a deeper understanding, which takes it to like maybe it needs to start from when you're in school. You need to be educated in it, both physical and mentally, that way from a younger age, or maybe like high school, maybe a wee bit older, so it's not too young, because there's obviously a line that you can cross where they would be too young. But then I suppose
you say that, sorry Mel, you say that.
Sorry.
I mean, my son's 3. He's just started nursery. Now he got a place at one nursery, and their motto was, "It's all about food. Eat,
Right.
eat the whole time he's there." And I thought, oh, hang on a minute, I don't want him eating the whole day. They said they'll have 1 fruit, 1 fat, 1 carbohydrate. I can't remember what the other thing was, but it was a group. And throughout that day, he'd have 1 of each, and he'd graze all day. And I thought, I don't want that. My son's used to having 3 meals a day with healthy snacks in between. He got offered a place at another nursery. Their motto was they get fruit or veg of a morning, and that is their snack, or in the afternoon, depending on what time they go. So I not only opted for that option, but the one I didn't want to send him to was the one that's going to feed him all day. Because I'm thinking, I'm feeding him his lunch before he goes, and my child's going to get home, won't want his dinner because he's been snacking and eating all afternoon. So I put him into the other nursery, and when he comes home, we always say to him, "What did you have for your snack?" And he comes up with the weirdest things, but I've seen pictures of what they feed them. And he'll go, "Oh, today I had peppers and apple." And I go, "Oh, okay, was that nice?" Because it was lovely. And he loves his fruit and veg. But he gets excited that he'll have, because I'm allergic to orange, so he gets orange at school, which he can't have at home. So he'll say, I had orange and kiwi today. And he makes a big point at 3 years old of being really excited about what he has. And he loves his fruit and veg. All right, he loves his sweet, like his chocolate and his biscuits, but his fruit and veg is like bread and butter. But I found that if he had gone to the other one, he probably would have, because they said, "You've got to feed him his lunch before he comes." He's there for 3 hours. In that 3 hours, they said, we'll give him things like beans on toast, yogurts, ice cream, biscuits, crisps. And I'm thinking, my child's going to go, and he's going to end up like a little balloon by the time he's finished nursery. And that really put me off. That was one of the main things that really put me off sending him there. So I think that there is no set young age to start educating them, because if you think of when a child starts weaning, you start weaning them with pureed food, which wouldn't be biscuits and crisps. It's going to be things like what he had, sweet potato mashed up, you know, all that sort of pulpy stuff, which he got a taste of that at a young age. And, you know, from sort of 6 months, he was really into it all. I couldn't imagine now sending him to a nursery that would just feed him rubbish continually all afternoon.
So I think that's because you're quite educated on it, but if there's parents out there that they just have never been taught any of this stuff, So if they're not installing, so that's great that you do that at that age and he's learning this stuff. You've chosen that nursery, which is going to really, really help with that. But there is some parents out there that they just do not have a clue when it comes to food. They don't know what's a healthier option, what's less healthier to a certain extent. So if they're not instilling that into the child from a young age, and then we go in and try to educate them, like if we were like trying to bring a course into a school and stuff, then it becomes very difficult because it needs to be happening at home for it then to be like taken on board, I feel. Because like a one-day course isn't going to change their minds massively, because I have adults coming in that have kids and they literally have never been taught a single thing about nutrition. They just, when you say carbs, protein, fats, if you to give them a list and ask them what was what, like some of them don't know. They have no idea.
One of the things that, my son, we get a school report for every fortnight, and one of the things was he made carrot soup. He made carrot soup in nursery, and they showed me photos of him actually peeling the carrots. And they said his understanding and his knowledge of how you peel vegetables and how you chop them and the safety aspect and everything else, and nutrition aspect, was absolutely out of this world. And I went, oh yeah, he does it on a Sunday with his dad. He always helps us cook every night, but on a Sunday, my partner will always do a roast dinner, and he always gets him at the island and he gets him peeling and everything else at 3 years old. So a lot of parents would say, oh, they're too young for that. But he's supervised, he's safe, and he's already learned at the age of 3, things are sharp, keep your hands out of the way. And it's reflected already in nursery by them turning around and saying, he's the first child that's done it, and the first child that actually ate the soup and finished it. And I was like, yeah, that's my boy. But yeah, that is something I do agree that parents need to educate themselves how to educate their children on the food side of things.
Yeah, and that's something that I'll say to guys, like if people are inquiring, sometimes I'll say, look, yeah, you might be doing this for you to get healthier and fitter, but the knowledge and the information that you will gain that you can pass on to your children, you can stop them from having the same issues that you've had later in life. So yeah, it's getting people to realise, like, yeah, you help yourself, but you're going to help your family much, much more, and stop that same vicious cycle that you went through, because a lot of the time, like, everyone is just winging it. No one taught our mums and dads, no one really taught their mums and dads. Everyone was kind of left to just wing it and go on with it, and we were all kind of taught to ignore hunger cues because of the way things were. We were taught to, you ate everything or you didn't move, or you don't get a dessert if you don't finish your dinner, so you're taught to ignore the fact that you're full because you want the dessert. And there's so many different things in there that people have picked up over the years through no one's fault. It's just the way things were. But it's now a point where I feel like I'm really trying to help change that and help them help their kids so that they don't have the same
There is
same
no
issue.
parent guide. That's the problem. There's always been, people say there's books that haven't come out on it, but you've also got to look at the social cultural aspect of that. A lot of people who don't have a lot of money look at fresh fruit and veg as being like an extra because of what money can cost. So they will look at a couple of tins of beans or beans and sausage, whatever the cheap things are, compared to buying a pepper or an apple. When you look at that and see you can pay 56, 8p for an apple, they can get some 4 tins or something for the kids rather than that. That's also a thing, is that I think where the education is great still, but we need to do more of that. But it's also because we've got to consider how do we do it for the ones who haven't got the money to really buy all the healthy things that their kids really need. And when you're saying, Leanne, about the 2 nurseries, that, like, one looking at more being the way modernised we should be looking at things. But the other one, the reason they feed them like that, or they used to say they always do that, is because the amount of energy they burn off. So they were fueling them up for the energy kids burn as they play all day when they're in nursery. So that's why they used to do things like that. It's getting that way, because the last thing you wanted was to go to their parents and saying they're starving, they're running all day. They go, what do you feed my kids on in there? So it's the education even for the nurseries. We need to understand that times have changed now, and not everybody wants their child like that. If you give them the right food at the right times of day, which not always is not necessarily 3 square meals. We've had this brought up our life at the 3 meals as it, but it isn't. A lot of people I know don't eat that way. They eat smaller meals, snacks throughout the day, smaller meals throughout the day, and they're probably a lot fitter, healthier than them. But it's because the way they're educated compared to us, and it's just yeah, we get into this routine thing where, same as you said, is I love the thing is chef called Ken Hom. He's an Asian chef. And Ken Holmes is a great thing. He always laughs when he looks at the things we put on our plates over here, because you just put the meat and try and work out what vegetables can go at the side of it. They do the vegetables will work out what meat might accompany that, because the veg is the most important part. That's the bit for them that's most important and needed, is the healthier part. Yeah, you need your protein. The protein's not as much as you need the rest of it. So why do you do the opposite around? And it's true.
I grew up like that.
Yeah, you've got the protein first, slammed on your plate, then what can we fit in to go with that? And you sit and go, well, we're having chicken this week. What do we have? You never say, right, I've got this veg in here, what will go with the veg? And that's kind of simple education that we don't have, that he's been saying for 20, 30 years on TV. And we still haven't got the messages, is that you can enjoy food with the colours, with the smells, the look, and it does just as great, but it's actually better for you than having the big slab of meat and making two veg they got on a plate. And it's simple. Your child's doing that because the colours and everything, I bet it's what attracts him as well, with the apple and the pepper. It's things that go some that we wouldn't think of, but they probably do go together. But it's great having that. But
absolutely,
it's all education. We all agree with that. That what each of us does, everybody that knows that education is the biggest thing we need to bring mental health and physical to become the one thing. Just talk about health. It's called the National Health Service. It's not called the National Physical Health Service or the Mental Health Service. So that should be the same. PTs like Mel's doing should be the way forward as well. That they're looking at, okay, it's important to understand. It might not be a top nutritionist, but I need to understand about for that diet to explain if we're going to get you to train, how do you actually sustain that? You need to be eating the right way to be able to do that. Then people like us who work more with the mind need to understand we need people like Mel to actually then go hand in hand with what we do and say, we can get you mentally right and you can feel better. If you don't eat the right foods, I can tell them all these great things to do mentally, but if they don't eat the right food, that draws them down. They don't have the energy levels. They don't have the feeling they get in themselves to feel great if they don't eat. So we all need to get together. And these people, and I love something you two said, because I'm trying this thing, is getting to educate people. When do we decide it's too young? From a psychologist's point of view, we look at 18 to 2 years roughly as when children really start to develop things, because they start understanding what yes and no is. That you just mentioned, your boy's only 3. You start understanding yes and no, what's I can do, what you cannot do. So does that mean if we teach a bit about food right from that? Yes, that's good to me. No, that's not. So they could start learning from that age. Although the bodies are developing, we could teach them as the body's developing that through stages in their life, they're going to change what food they have because they need more as they start to grow.
And their behaviour is different as well. That is a major thing. I mean, I know with my son, if he has a day of eating things like donuts, crisp biscuits, and he sort of like has a day of that, then his attitude, his behaviour, his sleep pattern, everything goes out the window. And then the next day when he goes back to he's very set on he has to have his blueberries with his breakfast of the morning. And when he goes back to his fruit and veg, he's calmer, he's relaxed, he sleeps better, his overall well-being and his health has improved, and his attitude's improved as well. And I find that you'll go to schools where you'll see some children that are sleep deprived, they're acting out, the parents can't control them. I always say, look at their diet. And they go, oh, what do you mean? You know, they eat, they eat a balanced diet. But what do they eat? That's the thing. And okay, I'm not perfect with his diet. Don't get me wrong. He had a chocolate donut today. I'll hold my hands up. You know, he has a chocolate donut. But that, to me, that's as long as he's getting so much fruit and veg a day, he can have the odd treat every now and then. I don't deprive him. I'm not one of these parents that's like, you're not having that. But I monitor what he's eating and what he's drinking. He's never had a fizzy drink in his life. I don't encourage fizzy drinks. Sugar, he will not have sugared sweets. I don't mind him having chocolate, but there's no way he's having Haribos or anything like that, because I'm not having him bouncing off the walls. I've even had to stop him eating Jamie Dodgers because the sugar and the Tony's like, oh God, you horrible mother. They make it.
It sounds like a prison. Yeah.
It is. It's a prison camp, but that makes him bounce off the walls. And I've noticed them signs, and I've stopped it.
To be honest, though, adults are the exact same. So when it comes, it's not just kids. Like for adults, what the affects their mood, it can heighten your anxiety, it can heighten your stress, your sleep is massively affected depending on what your food choices have been. What if you're eating really close to bed, you won't get a good sleep, and it massively affects everyone, including obviously for kids when they're growing and there's a lot going on there. It has a big effect, but I think a lot of adults forget that they are being affected in exactly the same ways. And they tend to put all the focus on their kids and making sure it's all been done right for them, and they put themselves in the back burner, and they end up eating crap because they're unorganized, because they've been too busy looking after the kids, and then that ends up having an effect. It's just a massive kind of yo-yo effect. Something that, like, as part of my program, like what I've created is a community of like-minded people who are all kind of striving, aiming for the same results. And I find that that's been a massive driver of results, because everyone realizes, like, it's not just them that's in this position, and they all end up learning from each other. So it's not just me that's doing all the work. It's not just me that's kind of giving all the help and advice. They end up learning stuff and helping and advising each other. And I think as soon as you get a community of people like that, then they thrive off each other. And then that's when it can start to have that knock-on effect, and they can pass on the information and stuff, which is really good.
Yeah, it's the ripple effect. And that when you tell one person something that goes in, you never know how far you can go, but you've always got to start with that one person. So it's the same saying stays, journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. It's the same as that. Take one step forward. For anybody listening to you tonight then, it's been a great debate talking about kids and adults. We're all alike. It doesn't really make a difference what one it is. We all need to be eating better. We all need to get fitter and healthier mentally as well as physically, so you can enjoy life full as much as possible. So it goes back to the same thing we always said, we need a bit of communication, a bit of education. Put the two of them together and get it, enjoy everything. So thank you, Mel, for coming along. That was brilliant. Thank you, Leanne, again, as usual, for tonight as well. If anybody does want to contact us to let us know any comments you want about what's happened tonight, how can they get in touch with you, Mel?
My main source of kind of contact will probably be Instagram. So it's Mel YPT20 is my Instagram name. Yeah, just drop me a message on that. Give me a follow. There's always value and content on there that you can learn stuff from.
Good. And Leanne, how do they get in touch with you?
So you can contact me, either email me at realityspace@gmail.com, or you can go on my website at www.reality-space.co.uk, or contact me on Facebook or via Tony.
All right, thank you, Lise. And as usual, just email me as normal at TonyGordon@changeyourmindlimited.com. Remember, the limited's LTD. Tony.changeyourmindlimited.com. Any suggestions that as well? We've got 2 more episodes left of this series, and then it will change slightly for series 5 coming up later on in the year. So anything, any questions you've got for the next couple of weeks, please let us know as soon as you can so we can get them onto the show. So anything at all, let us know that. Any comment, any suggestion, any affair tonight you either agree with or you don't, let us know about that as well, because it's always good to get other people's opinions. So otherwise, as usual, just take care of yourself, take care of your families, and good night from me.
Good night from me.
And good night from me. Thanks for having me, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.